Welcome to Gay Fairfax, a monthly entertainment magazine sharing news, views, and pride. I'm Michelle Michaels.
And I'm Barry Forbes. On this and future shows, we'll feature personalities and events of interest to the gay and lesbian community in Fairfax County. And on today's show, you'll meet novelist Armistead Maupin, novelist of the popular series Tales of the Cities. And we'll meet former Staff Sergeant Perry Watkins, as he recounts his ordeal of being denied re-enlistment with the Army.
And we'll visit the Names Project AIDS Quilt in Washington, D.C. But first, here's David Vanderbilt with a recap of the national and local gay news.
Could a medical pioneer of the 50s be the medical hero of the 90s? It's quite possible that Dr. Jonas Salk, who gave the world a vaccine which virtually eliminated polio in the 1950s, will once again make medical history with his newly developed AIDS vaccine, known as DDI. The vaccine, derived from a deactivated HIV virus, has proven successful in preventing the virus from becoming active in laboratory test animals. Salk, who now believes the vaccine is ready for human testing, has received numerous requests by volunteers wishing to receive DDI on an experimental basis. Many among the medical profession are concerned that human testing of DDI might carry a high risk of death within the course of early testing. Recently, the Food and Drug Administration approved the well-known HIV drug, AZT, for use among those who have tested positive to the HIV virus, yet exhibit no symptoms of AIDS-related illness. AZT has proven effective in slowing the progression of the disease in asymptomatic people. A side benefit of the FDA's approval is the likelihood of insurance company benefit payment to recipients of the drug AZT. Furthermore, it has been reported that widespread use of AZT may be a factor in the significant decrease of deaths among those who have tested positive to the HIV virus. If you have or know someone with AIDS-related illness, a series of home care seminars are being made available through the Fairfax Hospital and other local health services organizations. These workshops discuss AIDS medical updates, the psychological issues of AIDS, and coping with death and dying. Additional seminars for those within the medical or social services professions address such topics as pain control, nutrition, and drug studies. For further information on these seminars, contact the Northern Virginia HIV Resource and Consultation Center. Their phone number in Annandale is 641-0690. And that's news you need to know. For Gay Fairfax, I'm David Vanderbilt. Now back to Barry and Michelle.
Thank you, David. Novelist Armistead Maupin continues to delight his readers with his outrageously funny stories of life in San Francisco in the Tales of the City series. The final volume, Sure of You, was released last fall. Maupin introduced the latest novel in a recent book signing tour. David Vanderbilt met with the author and some of his fans at the Lambda Rising bookstore.
We're here this evening to celebrate the works of Armistead Maupin, his latest creation, Sure of You. I wonder if you could tell me, in regard to Armistead Maupin's writings, his works, what it is about his works that may hold special interest to you,
you know, the wonderful sense of the absurd. I mean, that's what I adore.
That all of his characters, there's something about all of his characters that connects to, at least one thing about all of his characters that connects to my life. The main characters, and it always have something about them that is the same in someone I know, or is the same in myself, or someone in my family, or something like that. It's very real for me.
It's so realistic. I mean, it hits me in a very, you know, a very deep place. So I mean, especially the last one, Sure of You, because it's, you know, it speaks to a lot of my issues, and it speaks to my life, and it's also done so well. So I love his work.
Ladies and gentlemen, Armistead Maupin.
You're reading the last one first and then going back.
You don't know when for sure they're
It'll work.
early in the
Remember the characters. It'll work. Yeah.
The book report looks great. Great interview, Jim.
It really doesn't matter what you write, just keep writing.
Thank you. That's very nice.
This one's Georgia.
Georgia.
I love your books. You're not stopping, are you?
Yes, on this series, I'll still be writing novels, but this will be the last of the series.
I shouldn't have we?
That's really awful.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad you like them. I know that's what it means, so I appreciate it.
It's been said that your latest book, entitled Sure of You, may mark the end of an era to familiar characters and settings. Does this represent the beginning of a new era to you as a writer?
Yes, certainly it will, because I'll be working on other novels, and it's frankly, when you've lived with the same characters for about a dozen years, you kind of want to get on to others. I love these people, and I miss them already. As soon as the earthquake hit, I was immediately thinking, oh God, where are they and what are they doing? But yeah, it will be a new era for me, I think.
You're known to be a vocal advocate of the coming out of the closet process. As a gay man, I wonder how your own coming out process has affected or influenced your writing.
I think it is the reason I'm a writer, really, the fact that I came out. It really changed my life completely when I came out of the closet, and opened up all sorts of new possibilities for me. Made me realize there was this wonderful material out there waiting to be tapped that really wasn't being included in modern fiction. And so it was had a big effect on me. And I think it actually enabled me to write about my heterosexual characters better, because I really understood the nature of love a little bit more. Until you feel it yourself, whether you're gay or straight, you can't really write about it in other people, I think. And so because I was in the closet for a long time and didn't really have sex with anybody till I was 26 years old, I had a lot of catching up to do.
In this age of AIDS, homophobia, and what certainly seems to be an increased sense of violence toward the gay and lesbian community, there seems to be a paradox that I feel in that straight middle-class America seems to endear celebrities who may seem as blatantly gay or lesbian. I wonder if celebrity at times has a tendency to transcend or disguise gayness.
You mean, does our system disguise homosexuality when people reach a certain level of fame? Is that what you're asking?
Sure. Precisely.
Sure. I mean, there's no question about it. When you reach a certain level of fame in this country, people learn to keep quiet about their homosexuality. There's a whole system which tells them that they can't be successful and popular and loved if they're known to be gay. So they go to great lengths to disguise that, and I think it's time that we shattered that system as effectively as we possibly can.
What about the audience? The middle-class straight audience, they seem to, I get the sense that they seem to want to not believe the possibility of the person being gay or lesbian because they are so popular. How do you respond to that?
Well, I have a hard time blaming things on the middle-class straight audience when we as gay people go to such lengths to conceal ourselves. You know, we have to give people credit for what they they already know about. My experience has been that we greatly undersell or underestimate the ability of a middle-class straight audience to accept gay people. I think I'm living proof of that. I have lots of middle-class straight readers, and they're not horrified by who I am or what I'm talking about. So I think we've got to start turning the question back on ourselves and start asking our own heroes, gay people that we know to be celebrities, why they aren't being a little bit more public about who they are. We have a lot of heroes that we celebrate as gay people that we are not allowed to discuss in a mainstream way, and I think that's preposterous. And I think it's time we started putting pressure on these people who are really playing both ends against the middle, who will come around to these gay bookstores and sign books and cultivate a whole gay audience, and yet are never publicly gay when it comes around to talking to a mainstream audience.
In a recent issue of Newsweek magazine, Armistead Maupin is described as having evolved from an underground humorist to that of mainstream satirist. Will Maupin's works continue to hold special appeal to his gay and lesbian readers?
Yes, I think so. Armistead has been a friend of our community. I think the community has really made Armistead. Armistead's works are now being read by non-gays as well, which they love his books, the Tales of the City series, which the final just came out, Sure of You. Armistead's writing style is what is his big seller. His storyline and his writing style are enjoyable. It's fun, it's uplifting. People get a great deal out of his work. That's why he's going to continue to grow. That's why he's continued to be mainstream. His books, once again, are enjoyable. They're fun. And I think he's got a hell of a career ahead of him. He's a decent man.
For Gay Fairfax, this is David Vanderbilt reporting from the Lambda Rising bookstore in downtown Washington, D.C.
Just 5 years away from retirement, former Staff Sergeant Perry Watkins was denied re-enlistment because he is gay. Now, he's had a distinguished 15-year career and has served all over the world. In a luncheon speech, Watkins describes the details of his re-enlistment interview. Now, the segment opens as he explains how his lawyer tries to get a statement of the charges against Watkins.
So, my attorney again asked, what offense is under investigation? Prepare yourselves for the answer, folks, because here it is. I'm being investigated for definitions of homosexual acts and sodomy. I haven't done anything. You have no, this was what was so interesting. There was no, we're charging this man with having committed. We're just going to question him because of the definitions we have here, and we're going to apply them to him, some way or another. Well, we went on to discover that, they were saying that the reason they were asking me specifically about those is because of statements that they had in my record. A statement that was made, ironically, at Port Belvoir, Virginia, in October of 1968. It was a statement that was made, and we're talking now October of 1982. It was a statement that was made after I was sexually assaulted by 5 men in my barracks. Now, for some ungodly reason, I fought like hell, okay? And any woman who's ever been a victim of assault knows the difference between, and any woman or man in many cases, knows the difference between willful compliance with the group and unwillful compliance with the group. And I just simply, I wasn't so much that I wasn't in the mood, it's just it wasn't the right time. I had a headache or something, but I fought. I walked straight into my commander's office, and I said, look, I'm sorry, the next day, I can't deal with this. These 5 men attacked me, and when I get excited, my voice goes up, my hands start going, and I'm standing here in front of this captain's desk, and I'm going, look, these people attacked me, and I'm not going to put up with this. And he just kind of looked at me, and he went, well, what are you saying? I said, I am homosexual. They put me in this army. These 5 men attacked me, and either you do something about it or you let me go home right now. I'm tired. It was amazing. What the Army did with this was send me to the military police to complete a form filing a complaint and conducting an investigation. The 5 men who attacked me were never charged with anything. They were never questioned. The assault was never investigated. What they did was take a statement from me, investigated it for 3 months, came back and said, well, we can't prove this ever happened, so you have to stay in the military. I said, oh, I see. So this is the game we're going to play. And then, of course, that was immediately followed with the statement, but if you'd like to give us the names of some other gay people, we'd be more than happy to investigate this further. And I said, no, thank you. I'm slow, but I'm not real stupid. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I waltzed back into my commander's office, and I stood at attention in front of my commander's desk, and I told him. I looked him in the eye, and I said, I'm going to tell you one thing, and I'm going to say it one time and one time only. You know who the 5 people were who attacked me. I have just been told that I cannot get out of the Army because they can't prove that I'm gay. I said, well, now you seem to have a problem here. And I'll tell you this, you can call those 5 people into your office, and you had better warn them that if they ever so much as look at me cross-eyed again, they'd better not ever go to sleep, because I will take a bunk adapter and rearrange every single head in that group. And if you think I'm joking, you try me, Buster. From that point on, every time I requested re-enlistment or anything, the Army said yes. The Army then gave me a discharge board in 1975, which came back and said, no, there's no reason for this man to be discharged. Now in 1982, we're having a re-enlistment interview based on a statement that the Army itself has said we cannot prove that the man is homosexual. In fact, the thing I found most humorous about the actual findings in that particular investigation was, in order to protect themselves, because they knew I was filing this in conjunction with the request for discharge, they said, we don't think that Sergeant Watkins is homosexual, or Perry Watkins is homosexual. It was a private thing. We think he only has problems because of his mannerisms. It's a scary thought that 15 years later, the Army comes back and says, we now have a right to deny this man re-enlistment based on a statement he made 15 years earlier that we said we could not prove, that we have not re-investigated, but we're now going to use as the basis for conducting a re-enlistment interview to determine if he is eligible for re-enlistment. I, like Joe Steffens, on the advice of my attorney, sat and listened to the questions, and I will read some of them to you because you'll find them very interesting. Let's see. Have you ever engaged in homosexual acts or acts of sodomy? Now, have you ever means your entire life. We're talking about re-enlisting someone in conjunction with a regulation that at that time specifically stated you cannot go back to instances farther than the initial re-enlistment. Well, even the statement they're using is already 4 enlistments old. So the question, have you ever, is really interesting. Have you ever engaged in homosexual acts or acts of sodomy with other soldiers? You know, have you ever? We're talking 15 years of my life now. You know, so why should I answer a question like that to do 5 more years to retire? Very interesting concept. So when the Army decided that we can't re-enlist this man, what was the reason? Was it because as a soldier he did not function well? Was it because as a soldier we had problems with this man? Was it because we've got this little queen here that constantly disrupts the units? No, they looked at my records and decided that was not the problem. The reason given for my being unable to re-enlist was because I refused to answer questions concerning my homosexuality and homosexual acts. I'll ask you again, does that sound like strictly a military issue? Most of your people that are thrown out of the military because of the regulation concerning homosexuality and homosexual acts have done nothing more than simply exercise their rights as American citizens, rights that we all have. Now I have a chance to make a difference. I have a chance to help. I have a chance to see to it that other people do not have to suffer with what I suffered through. One person can make a difference. And remember, it is not your physical appearance, it is your attitude that will get you where you want to go. If you don't think you can make it, you won't. But we know we're going to make it, and we're going to keep thinking we're going to make it. Think positive, and we will get there. Thank you, people.
The NAMES Project AIDS quilt has become a powerful symbol of the human side of AIDS, which has already claimed over 70,000 lives in the United States alone. Last October, the AIDS quilt was displayed in its entirety for the last time on the Ellipse in the nation's capital.
Last October, the NAMES Project's AIDS Memorial Quilt was displayed in its entirety over the 14 acres of grounds on the White House Ellipse. Over 10,000 3-by-6-foot cloth panels, each representing a person who has died from the AIDS epidemic, was constructed and assembled. Each panel of the quilt providing a very clear and pure message. Human beings die of AIDS. Although the quilt began as a memorial, it has become one of the nation's most valuable resources for promoting a compassionate and educational dialogue about AIDS. The quilt's non-threatening nature allows people from all walks of life to view and learn about the AIDS epidemic from its human side. Its artistic and creative approach enables accessibility to all, regardless of literacy. It is impossible for visitors to see the personal messages on the panels and not be touched. It is difficult for them to feel immune to the disease when viewing a panel that memorializes someone with a name similar to their own, or someone born the same year, or who enjoy the same hobbies and interests. It's an emotional and educational experience to understand the value of those lost lives. As awareness of the quilt grew, so did participation. Thousands of individuals and groups from all over the United States, and indeed from many foreign countries, began to send the memorial panels to the San Francisco workshop to be included in the quilt. A variety of fabrics and objects were used in the construction of the individual quilt panels, each serving to symbolize and commemorate the love, respect, and achievement of those who died. Some chose to read the names of loved ones, giving further testimony to those who have been brought down by this horrible disease. A large area of blank cloth panels were assembled and made available to those wishing to leave behind an individual thought to loved ones. An aggressive approach is underway toward bringing the quilt to new audiences. Continuing to reach new audiences slowly affects change in how people view AIDS and its effect on their lives. Children, ethnic, racial minorities, and IV drug abusers are those communities now being hit hardest by the second wave of the AIDS epidemic. The quilt is an ongoing memorial and educational tool. Panels continue to be added as the AIDS epidemic continues unabated. The quilt and its 10,000 plus panels has recently been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. As the toll of AIDS deaths globally continue to rise, the quilt is offered as one example of an appropriate, compassionate response to the epidemic. The NAMES Project Foundation has a commitment to continue for the duration of the epidemic. In response to the conspicuous absence of President Bush during the quilt display and the Bush administration's passivity, non-commitment, and slow response in passing legislation for increased federal funding for AIDS research, a candlelight vigil sponsored by the Whitman Walker Clinic, joined by the Inner City AIDS Network and the NAMES Project, marched past the White House. Over 10,000 marchers made their way down Pennsylvania Avenue toward their final destination, the Lincoln Memorial, where a brief ceremony was scheduled for 8 p.m. Cleve Jones, founder of the NAMES Project, Jim Graham, administrator of the Whitman Walker Clinic, and a woman living with AIDS, spoke to the large crowd. The Whitman Walker Clinic is the primary community-based AIDS service provider in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. The Inner City AIDS Network is dedicated to AIDS education and prevention in Washington's black community. As the candlelit procession melted into the darkness of that evening, one could clearly see how the Bush administration's 1,000 points of light theme had been outshone by the candlelight vigil's 10,000 points of light, which clearly illuminated the reality and the rage of what is truly this nation's greatest nemesis, the nemesis called AIDS.
Whoa. Well, that about wraps up this first edition of Gay Fairfax, but we have much more planned in the future.
Join us next month as we have the Lesbian and Gay Chorus of Washington, D.C. Ensemble in concert. We'll also hear from gay film historian Vito Russo, the author of The Celluloid Closet. Be sure to check your cable TV program guide for the dates and times.
If you'd like to join us on the production team of Gay Fairfax, write to us in care of FLGCA. That's the Fairfax Lesbian and Gay Citizens Association, Post Office Box 2322, Springfield, Virginia 22152. Or if you prefer, you can leave a message for us on our answering machine, and the number is 451-9528. Again, that's 451-9528. Any way you do it, we'd like to hear from you.
In the meantime, thank you for joining us. For Gay Fairfax, I'm Michelle Michaels.
And I'm Barry Forbes. And remember to keep the pride alive.